Just a question on, we talked about injuries, dog bite, we talked about that. So when you're looking at insurance for landlord policy, what do you look for? How do you ensure you get the right coverage to make sure you're protected for those kind of things if you do end up in a lawsuit?
So premises liability is what you want. And so that's what they call loosely slip, trip, and fall insurance. But it covers any injury that someone has that is invited on the property or comes on the property for a reasonable use, right? Something happens, the sidewalk is uneven and they fall, so it must be your fault, right? Or, tenant invites a friend over that has a dog and bites somebody. Well, the dog was legally there because they invited them over, so it's got to be your fault, right? It's not really, but it'll cover any reasonable thing like that. That's premises liability.
Definitely talk with your insurance broker or insurance provider. So we use NREIG. Their link is on our website, bestagents.com. I'm definitely not an expert.
Yeah, I'm not an insurance guy, but.
Well, starting out, insurance was a check the box thing. I knew you had to have it. Because the lender said you had to have it. There's a reason why the lender wants you to have it. They're protecting their butt. But really, there is a lot of things you need to make sure that are right with the policy, depending on what you're doing. Now, I didn't realize that, hey, when you flip in a house, yeah, you need a builder's risk policy, but when you're done flipping it, you need to switch that to a vacant policy. Like, you have X amount of days before you may lose some coverage.
Oh, I got a good one. I got a good insurance tip.
Make sure, so I guess if I know a term, I don't really know the actual insurance term, but all perils, basically, from my understanding, it means they cover everything except for this block of things that they're excluding. And most of those things could also be included. You're just getting riders and you're paying extras for it. So anyway, talk with the insurance provider, make sure you have the right policy for the right property and what you're doing with it, and check in with them, and then figure out all the things that they don't cover so you can make sure that if you want them covered, it gets covered. Go ahead.
Yeah, all perils. You're right about that. So this happened to us, and this is a gotcha that we never saw coming. House is occupied for several years, and we have a landlord policy, right? Texas dwelling policy, where it covers a tenant-occupied house. And everybody's familiar that there's a vacancy clause on those. Do y'all know what that means? If it's vacant for more than X number of days, it's not valid anymore. 60 or 90. Some are 60, most are 60, somebody said. So we had a house that went vacant because it had a fire. No, I'm sorry. It went vacant and then had a fire greater than 60 days after they moved out, and we didn't switch it to a vacant dwelling policy. So what does that mean to you? We have a problem.
But there is a big difference between vacancy and unoccupied.
True.
Is as long as you keep the utilities on, it's not vacant. Vacant buildings are generally, there's no utilities, you're boarded up. They're truly a vacant building.
Well, their interpretation was that your tenant moved out greater than 60 days ago, we're not paying.
Again, that's not what the policy says. That's what I deal with all the time. So
that's an interesting thing to know.
The biggest thing about insurance policies, a lot of people go out and buy the cheapest policy they can buy. They're not buying coverage nowadays. And that's a major mistake. When you look at the policy, you really need to you need to read the policy. And if you don't know how to read the policy, I don't want to say you don't know how to read it. Everybody knows how to read, hopefully. Interpreting the policy and the language in that policy and all we owe you for this and we don't owe you for that. They're master craftsmen at putting that kind of language in the policy. So after you read a couple pages, you're confused as hell if you hadn't read policies for the last 20 years like I do. Now, the biggest thing is the policies are generally all the same. They all have the same got you language in them. It's the forms and endorsements that'll bite you on the butt. If you have a rental property and they have a safeguard endorsement in there that says you have to have smoke detectors, alarm systems, and things like that, and they're not maintained, and you don't have a log where you had somebody go out and check that smoke detector on that rental property every 30 days or 90 days or whatever that policy is, mandating that you do, and you do have a fire and it's and there's a tenant in there, so you don't have that issue. But then they come out and they're not going to pay the claim for that reason. I had a client last year that he owns a lot of hospitality properties, a hotel owner, and he switched his agent on his house to his agent on his commercial properties. That agent wrote a policy that said he had a sprinkler system in his house. How many people have sprinkler systems in their house that don't live in an apartment or a condo?
Not very many.
Zero. I've never seen one. So they come back and they deny this claim. It didn't have a huge claim. It was about it was about $150,000. So it wasn't the end of the world for him. But we were able to get that claim paid because national average is, unless you just live in an area where there's wildfires, maybe California or somewhere like that, people are not going to have a sprinkler system in their house. So the number one thing about insurance claim or insurance is buyer beware. Know what you're buying. If you get an agent you actually trust and actually read. I had a potential client called me yesterday. The agent put down on the application that the roof was 5 years old. When you go look at it on Google Earth, everybody, Ray Charles can see it's not 5 years old. Okay. And their insurance company now is saying, well, that's what you put on the application. We're denying your claim. Read the application. Make sure that don't just go signing it blindly like your agent's got your back covered. They're there to make a commission. And not all agents are that way, but there's a lot of them out there that just want to sell you a policy and then you're holding the bag. So be careful.
Thank you for the input. The end of that story that we had was the insurance company denied the claim. And then we found out from a little birdie that our lender could request their loan payoff because there's no way they could have been notified that this happened, and they have to pay the loan balance off as long as it's below the insurance amount. So our lender was paid off, which was about the amount we would have got anyway on the claim, even though we didn't comply, in their words, with the policy. They had to pay the lender because after 60 days, it's not covered. But since the insurance company didn't know it was vacant for over 60 days, there's no way they could have sent a notice to our lender. So our lender sits there unprotected, and then that law is there to protect lenders. So our lender was able to get paid off, which in effect we got paid and paid the lender.
I think the biggest thing with there is, especially if you're flipping houses, we're in a market where you're probably not getting 15 offers on the first week these days. So if it takes longer than 60 days, you might want to talk to your insurance agent about switching that over to a vacant policy.